Have you ever thought how our technology came to be? Why we have cars and the internet and also Flappy Bird? Probably not, because you're too busy taking selfies. But selfies and all of the luxuries that we have came from a period known as the Industrial Revolution. Before the Industrial Revolution, people lived in small, rural areas, and more than 70% of England's population were farmers. Most of these farmers were poor and relied solely on crops to live. All it took was a long drought to kill the crops and then the farmers. Living conditions were not that great because of all the diseases that were easily spread through the livestock. In the long run, the Industrial Revolution would definitely improve the lives of the people. Right before the Industrial Revolution began, there was a period called the Agricultural Revolution, which increased crop production by almost 30%. This was caused when large landowners used large pastures to experiment in different ways to produce more food. Crop rotation was one method that increased germination efficiency. Seed drilling was another method that increased crop yield. This was a method in which every seed was equally spaced at an ideal depth. This was one cause that allowed the Industrial Revolution to occur. By dramatically increasing the crop yield, the population also greatly increased. The revolution began due to the surplus of food, a growing economy, and natural resources such as coal, iron, and rivers. The first machines were made to make a huge profit with little labor by mass-producing textiles. The spinning jenny reduced the time it took to make textile products. This included the flying shuttle, the spinning jenny, and the water frame. These machines made textiles cheaper than ever. The success in the textile industry inspired more innovations in society. This included the creation of the steam engine. The steam engine was used to make the steamboat and the steam drive locomotive. The locomotive brought forth the railroad age, which changed the way people traveled. Traveling became easier than ever. This also made trade cheaper, meaning that common people could sell products with ease, improving the economy even more. The Industrial Revolution caused mixed feelings for society. There were positive and negative effects. The positive side of the revolution was that it made people's lives easier in the long run, and the economy was flourishing because everything was much cheaper than it was before. Also, there was more food, shelter, and clothes, making the English population grow at an incredible rate. Aside from the benefits, there were many detrimental side effects. One of these effects was that the lower class lived in horrible conditions. Working conditions were hard, as many people died dealing with the new and dangerous machinery. Along with that, there was no sanitation for the most part, and money was scarce. This caused families to send their children to factories to work for more than 14 hours a day for 6 days a week for very little pay. The day of a child during the Industrial Revolution began no later than 4 a.m., and they were expected to be working at 5 a.m. They worked until noon, and then they were given half an hour to eat lunch. At 3 p.m., children were usually tired and were frequently whipped by their supervisors. The children were not allowed to eat during the evening, but they ate anything they could at 6 p.m. Their day ended after 16 exhausting hours at 9 p.m. Poor living conditions caused the lower class to protest against unfair wages, long working hours, and dangerous working conditions. The reforms were generally for the better. Work was dangerous for very young children, especially when they were working for hours on end with machines that were hazardous. The Factory Act banned children under the age of 9 to work in factories. Other acts created somewhat of a progression for children, limiting the hours they could work depending on their age. Children from ages 9 to 12 worked a maximum of 8 hours, and children ages 13 to 17 could work for a maximum of 12 hours. Other acts weren't as helpful to people that requested shorter working hours. The Combination Acts, for example, had a negative effect. Even though the peasants endured terrible working conditions, unions were banned. These reforms then led to new political thoughts such as socialism and communism. Reformers wanted to improve the lives of the common people since they lived strenuous and deprived lives. They introduced socialism, an idea in which all resources are owned by the public and benefit the entire society. This was a threat to the capitalists who believed that everyone should work for their own benefits. The Industrial Revolution was beneficial for society in the long run. Of course it had some disadvantages, but the advantages canceled them out. Without it, you wouldn't be watching this video. Thanks to this technological advance, we have what we have now.